Ladies and gentlemen, what is up and welcome to today's video where I wanted to have a little bit of a chat about a concept idea that I've been working on that I believe could be the biggest game changer for Marvel Contest of Champions, because with the current state of the game, I feel like the biggest thing missing from Marvel Contest of Champions is actually the contest and competitive element of the game. I feel like it's so incredibly lacking at the moment. Like, arenas are a snooze fest. They're so incredibly boring. Like, an Alliance quest, to a certain extent, you know, is dictated by prestige, and there's not really much you can do there, and we're all very much aware of the current state of Alliance War just being like a little bit crappy. So I think, at the moment, I've got a fairly solid idea for a mode of gameplay that would just be so incredibly fun, very fast-paced, and bring kind of a completely new life to Marvel Contest of Champions. And what I'm very much looking for is to get some kind of feedback on, you know, how this mode could be expanded. So in this video, I'm going to explain in detail kind of what this this pitch or concept idea is. And yeah, you know, at the end of the video, if you have kind of made it there, I'd really appreciate any kind of thoughts, any criticism, any areas that could be improved or expanded upon. Because yeah, I don't know, I think this is, you know, the foundation for an idea that I really hope Kabam will take to heart and will help shape kind of the future of the game. So what is 5v5 Team War? Essentially, it would be a scaled-down version of Alliance War. Theoretically, at the moment, it has one boss, 3 mini-bosses, and 21 enemies, and the boss and mini-bosses are fully visible, like they are in the current state of Alliance War, and everything else is only displayed by the class icon. Now, for 5v5 Team War, there will be actually 3 different competitive modes. There will be a 3-star exclusive, 4-star exclusive, and a 5-star exclusive. So each one would have progressively increased node difficulty and also tier-relevant rewards. So for example, the 3-star one, you could potentially get kind of new 3-star featured characters and work toward getting, you know, more resources to initially get 4-star champions and start upgrading them. 4-star, you know, more resources to upgrade your 4 stars and potentially more resources like 5-star shards and stuff you need. So yeah, kind of the reward scale up, but again, that isn't really what I want to focus on too much, the exact rewards there. So essentially we'd introduce something new in the game called a team, which, you know, in terms of the interface, the way that I would see this fitting in you know, is in kind of the top banner, and it would be a remastered version of the Alliance interface, very simplified. It would have 2 tabs. It would have 1 tab for members of the team, you know, maximum of 5, which you need to compete, and also a separate tab for the treasury, but the treasury only has unit donations, and this kind of works into the monetization model that we're going to talk about, because, you know, obviously, with every good idea, there needs to be some incentive for Kabam to kind of make, you know, generate profit off this game and kind of keep it balanced and fair, and we'll talk about that in great detail as we progress. So kind of the time frame of these matches, again, it's kind of aimed to be a bit more of a fast-paced and competitive version of the currently existing Alliance War setup, where you'd have 5 minutes for placement, everybody would have 5 defenders, and then 15 minutes to clear. So, you know, everything is kind of wrapped up in about a 20-minute time frame, which is, you know, very similar to a lot of competitive games that are out there at the moment. A lot of shooters, you know, keep their time frame constrained within 20 minutes, but if both battle groups clear it, it can end earlier. Now, these are actually some proposals for nodes that I believe would be, a fun, interesting, interactive, and create a very fluctuating dynamic between who's placed on defenders. And I know for pretty much certain that the technology available for all of these nodes is currently available in the game. And I think this is one of the things that, you know, I just realized so much today, because if you do Labyrinth of Legends 100%, there are a lot of unique nodes and technology used in Labyrinth for certain fights that has not been used pretty much anywhere else in the game, and especially like scaled down into Alliance War. A lot of these nodes could make for some really interesting dynamics between certain characters and defenders. So I want to talk about those ones, but first off, we have the pretty bog standard ones. Like, I like unblockable special 1s, I like unblockable special 2s. And I also like the idea of having like a chance to unblockable charge node, so, you know, potentially making certain characters into Rhino, because I think unblockable charge is something that's, you know, you can deal with it. If it's all the time, it becomes a little bit tough, but if it's a chance to, I think that's a very interesting dynamic there. The next one is unstunnable, but then it also adds the additional caveat of this champion cannot evade. I think that is a perfect addition to the unstunnable node there. Periodic unstoppable. So this would kind of have a timer, very much like Maestro's regeneration timer. So, you know, an opponent would go on unstoppable for 5 seconds, and then it would be like a 20-second cooldown. I think something like that is quite interesting, and you can play around that using skill. Special one disabled. So I really like the idea of something like this, because, you know, it makes certain characters that are very easy to fight, for example, like Doc Ock or Yondu, just by baiting their special ones. It, you know, makes those characters a lot more interesting, because, you know, they can only use either their special 2 or special 3, so you have to find ways to either fully evade or, you know, power control, or use a champion like Daredevil to kind of counter various abilities. So I really like the idea of a node like that being used in competitive gameplay. Poison and bleed nodes. I think, you know, while those aren't the most like interesting nodes in the world, I like the idea of kind of the team building element and planning ahead for kind of poison and bleed paths. And then we start getting onto some of the little bit more interesting and unique nodes. So this is actually a node which is not exactly in the game, but I believe they have the technology to do it if they wanted to. And I call it Stun Shield. So every attack would give you a buff of Electrified, and those buffs last for 20 seconds, but if you reach 15 stacks, you get stunned. So, you know, the incentive or kind of thing that this node would make you do is kind of reconsider your fighting style to maybe go a little bit slower. Maybe instead, you know, of this this window where you get in with 5 combo, and then you have to wait like, I don't know, 5 to 7 seconds to you know, for some buffs to fall off. Maybe you start kind of alternating your combo up and doing like a double medium combo, and then kind of like dashing back and then intercepting, another double medium. So I think there's, you know, a lot of skill and interesting gameplay that could be adapted into kind of a node like that. So I really like the idea of that one. And then the next one is something that's on Black Widow Labyrinth, which is after using a special attack, the enemy will gain a buff, which if attacked within 3 seconds, you get stunned and then would probably get wrecked. So yeah, I like that one, because, you know, again, that kind of alters the strategy and removes that window for getting your in after the special attack without being something that is complete BS. So I quite like that one. The next one is Electrified Block, which is essentially the thing that 4 Jane Foster has in Labyrinth. So, you know, attacking into this champion's block causes 25% of their attack as damage over 5 seconds. So yeah, I really like that one, because that kind of like forces you to change your playstyle a bit, mainly kind of, you know, avoiding special attacks and doing intercepting. And I guess, you know, this one is one that could be paired with like an unstunnable node and not be too ridiculous, and kind of have that, you know, higher element of skill, especially when it comes to the higher rated team wars. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in that. You know, it is possible to play around that. And then the next one is Bane with a safety window. So I like the concept of the Bane node in Act 5, but I don't think they do it well, because they don't have a safety window where there's, you know, like 3 seconds where you have in Labyrinth of Legends they have essentially Bane on Agent Venom, but you have a 3-second window after transferring the buff to either player where you will take no damage, and then you start incinerating, and then you take damage. So I like the idea of having Bane with a safety window, just so that, you know, you're not just going to default take damage if your opponent is like in the middle of a special attack while you know, Bane expires on them. So yeah, that's kind of, I'd like to see Bane, but only if it had a safety window included. And the next one is every blocked special here applies a stack of degeneration, and this is removed when you land a special attack. So this is actually on Moon Knight in Labyrinth of Legends, and I think this is a very interesting one, because, you know, I see this kind of node like this making potentially like a War Machine or Punisher kind of slightly preferred defenders, and also making, you know, champions like Dormammu if you're playing really slowly, Daredevil, and different power control champions. Potentially a very interesting option to counter that. So yeah, I quite like that node. And then the final one that I've put down is dashing back drains 5% power. And if you dash back with 0 power, you are stunned for 3 seconds. So Vision in Labyrinth of Legends has that, and that's a really, really fun and interesting fight, and would make champions that are incredibly aggressive like Hulk, Venom, Venom-Paw, potentially like much more lethal defenders on this node. You know, if you have a champion that's coming at you like 4 times of every combo, maybe you need to rethink your strategy, maybe you need to go with a champion with quite a bit of power gain, like Hyperion, to counter it. So yeah, I think there's some very interesting potential with all of these nodes, but I think they all kind of have, you know, in terms of the nodes that I've listed, the kind of, what is it, the thing that unifies them all is then not just like take a load of damage. You know, there are interesting and creative ways to play around every single node there. So yeah, I really do support a lot of those nodes, and I'd like to see a lot of those nodes introduced into hopefully the updated version of Alliance War, which we see in a week or two. Now, in terms of the scoring factors for this team war, I'd like to see team-based. You've got the exploration, and you've got the boss kill, and then for the individual player, these are kind of 4 things that I'd like to see. So I'd like to see defender kills being taken into account, so you get additional points for every opponent that you kill with a defender. And then the next one is damage taken, percentage-wise. So for the amount of damage you take, and actually this is, I need to put in brackets, it's a minus. So basically, for the damage you take on each character, the more damage you take, the more points are subtracted overall. So I think that one's a pretty interesting concept there. And what is it, from the New York Comic-Con Beat the Boss Challenge announcement, that is technology that they do have access to by the look of it. So yeah, that'd be super cool. And then stuff like blocked hits taken and also parries would subtract additional score. So this stuff, you know, mainly becomes hugely relevant in those super high tiers of Alliance War, because it rewards players who want to kind of take those risks and go for the intercepts and play well. Essentially, you know, the whole concept behind the scoring factors, mainly on the last 3 ones in player, is that you are rewarded for playing better in every single match. So that when it does come down to, you know, those really like high tier, what is it, team wars, then the players, you know, the team with the best players are essentially going to win there. So that's kind of stuff that I would also very much like to see in the current version of Alliance War. I think it'd be fantastic. So in terms of the monetization of this, as I mentioned earlier, there is going to be, in terms of like forming a team, there would be a treasury, and every team has 1 free entry every 24 hours, and additional entries are 100 units, so that's 20 units to chip in each. And then what do I have? These are just points in terms of like how this mode would make money. So yeah, you're gonna have people like paying 100 units per match, but you know, they get 1 free every 24 hours, and it is quite easy to grind that amount of units between players who want to quite aggressively go at this mode. So I think a fast-paced competitive meta like this greatly increases the value of throwing newer and more unfamiliar champions into the mix, increasing the appeal of interesting new champions, more crystal sales, more boost in arena to potentially, you know, grind those new champions as a 4-star, more cash. That's the way it works. And I think it also will offer a huge incentive to people to build up bigger and more diverse rosters to adapt to a faster paced shifting meta. And essentially what I mean by this is that I think the meta with Alliance War is a little bit too slow and a little bit too generic. What's kind of the point I'm trying to make here? I guess the point I'm trying to make is that every champion has a counter to a certain extent. So for example, if a lot of like magics are being placed, like a lot of people might use Archangel as an attacking champion, but to counter that, there are some champions that aren't really like highly rated defenders, like for example Abomination and also Yondu can absolutely tear through an Archangel, absolutely destroy them. So yeah, I think there's a lot more that could be adapted and changed with a much more faster paced meta like this, where you kind of have war wars going off and being concluded in 20 minutes time. So yeah, I think there's really big incentive to kind of people's rosters and champion collections to kind of have a mode of gameplay like this that is moving at a very fast and competitive pace. And yeah, I kind of really do think in terms of Marvel Contest of Champions monetization, that's where they should be making money, is selling characters and not making like BS content. Like that is my core belief, that there is so much appeal in the game with the champion rosters and upgrading champions that they could make so much potentially off packs and crystals and that stuff if they're giving out fair and decent offers. And having a mode like this, I feel like would greatly incentivize people to kind of build up a very interesting and expansive roster. So then we talk about the rewards of this mode. So wins award 50 units to the team treasury. So essentially, you know, if you go into a team war and you win it, you get 50% of the entrance fee back. So I think that's a pretty kind of good incentive there. And also the better you are, you know, the cheaper doing stuff like team war is going to be. And then I would also have it as kind of like a similar to the Alliance War system at the moment, a tier based on your win-lose awards. Yeah, tier-based win-lose awards based on your team rating. So, you know, very similar to what Alliance War is. So you're matched up to kind of teams that are of your relevant skill level and difficulty and roster size. But also, I would probably have this on a bi-weekly basis, and I'll talk about that a bit when I talk about the leaderboard. But say, for example, this Team War has like 15 tiers. Every week, people will be kind of racing and competing, the top-end players, to get into that top tier, to get the highest rank, because there'll be a weekly leaderboard that will give you some really good items, like potentially, I'm just throwing it out there, just random stuff, like the top players could get Tier 2 Alpha Catalyst, Tier 4 Class Catalyst, they could potentially get the new featured 4-star champion, much more interesting way to compete for kind of a newer character than just infinitely grinding an arena, but hey, that one might be off the table. I'm not too sure about that. And then, yeah, and then the rewards scale down, you know, based on kind of, you know, what tier you're doing it in. So if you're on the 3-star one, obviously it's a little bit less, but the rewards are, again, very up in the air at the moment. So yeah, the weekly leaderboard would also have kind of a minimum. We want to kind of encourage people to get to a certain tier like every week, so that they would get like a nice, even if they're not going to play super competitively, you want to try and ensure that, you know, there was a good enough incentive to get players to participate at least like 5 days a week. I think that would be a really kind of good benchmark to set for that. And yeah, so yeah, weekly rank system, and let's say there are 15 tiers, like at the end of every week, maybe every team is reset back to like tier 10. So, you know, from tiers like 15 to 11, you have all the kind of fresh people that are just entering Team War, and then, you know, between like 10 and 1 is where you have kind of the really fierce competition to kind of climb that leaderboard every week. And I think, you know, there's so much that could be done with this. You know, it could potentially turn Marvel Contest of Champions into a very interesting and compelling esport to watch. You know, there could be, it would greatly increase the amount of people that would be engaged with the endgame community in live streams. There could be big tournaments held. So yeah, I feel like there's so much potential in kind of doing this faster paced, you know, miniaturized version of Alliance War that relies on a 5v5 team. And then kind of additional notes I have is Team War can use all champions of a certain star, regardless of whether or not they are locked in the regular Alliance Quest Alliance War, very much like Arena. And to ensure a level of competitive integrity, boost revives and potions would be disabled or ineffective in this what is it, this mode of gameplay. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is my initial pitch for kind of the Team War concept. I just think something like this just has an infinite amount of potential that is not being tapped into at the moment, and if Kabam could get a handle on this, I feel like it would just make them so much money, make Marvel Contest of Champions and kind of the community and player base surrounding it so much happier. But yeah, anyway, that is just my opinion. I've put forward kind of all my case and points there. Yeah, I'm very interested to get some additional perspective on this in the comments below. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. I will give a link to this this document in the description of the video if you want to check it out. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Take care and have an absolutely fantastic day.